Hi, I'm Ray Patterson and I'm a mediator at Las Vegas Mediation. The purpose of this little video is to help you understand the ways that are available to resolve disputes, to solve problems in your life that you may find difficulty in doing yourself. So let's get started with some terminology first so that you know what I'm talking about. Whenever you feel aggrieved, whenever you feel that your feelings have been hurt or you've been treated shabbily, whenever you feel that you have cause to complain, you have a grievance. We're going to use that word grievance. So you have a grievance if you're driving down the 15 and somebody swerves from the far left lane right across your field of vision into the right lane, just cuts you off. That's a grievance. If your boss promotes somebody else where you thought you had a good shot at it, you might have a grievance. These are the things that we call, that's grievances, okay? If you actually tell the person who grieved you that you're upset, you have now, you've reached a complaint level. You've now have given a complaint. So if you were actually able to catch the person driving the car and tell them, listen, buddy, I think you're an idiot for the way you drive. Or sit down with your boss and say, I don't think it was fair that John was promoted over me. I think I had seniority and whatever else that you think you have. Now you are at the complaint stage. You've made a complaint. But you don't have a problem yet. You just made your complaint. If the other person to whom you are complaining denies or disputes that, says, no, that wasn't true, or disagrees with it, or doesn't respond to it, now you have reached the level of a dispute. So you have grievances, complaints, and disputes. That's how we work. If we were to continue on, you would find that if your dispute was not resolvable between the two of you, then you would probably hire a lawyer. The lawyer would write letters trying to get things resolved. If the lawyer could not do that, the lawyer would file papers in court. And now you're up to the next level, which is the court. So those are the levels that we go through from when we feel upset about something and then eventually wind up in court. Now, what techniques, what processes are available to us to deal with this escalation of the grievance? Well, for most people, the easiest process is called stuffing. Sometimes it's called lumping. So, take the grievance of the person who cut you off on the highway. You're never going to get a hold of that person. The most you can do is to curse them out in the car. So you just sort of swallow it. There's nothing you can do about that. With your boss, if you have a particularly terrifying boss, you may feel that it's not even worth going to talk to her. And so you just swallow it or stuff it. And most grievances are dealt with this way. Most people who feel upset by the way they're treated or feel disrespected in some way, swallow it. Now, I suppose that's a good thing because otherwise we would never be able to clear out the backlog in courts. The bad part about it, of course, is that if you stuff too much, you will reach a point where a minor incident sets you off and you explode. And there is a reason why we have the expression, the straw that broke the camel's back. It's a light little thing. But the camel has suffered so much already, has swallowed so much already, is suffering under the weight of so much already, that little straw is just enough to make them explode. So stuffing is the first way we deal with grievances. The second way we deal with it is we try to negotiate. We actually talk to the person who we make up our minds that we're going to talk to the person. We screw our courage to the sticking post, like Lady Macbeth said, and we sit down with our boss, or we sit down with a disgruntled wife, or we sit down with a friend of ours who is really out of sorts with us, and we try to work it out. Negotiation. Negotiation is trying to resolve an issue by talking about it. It's pretty straightforward. There's only one problem. Human beings are terrible negotiators. They tend to make statements like, "That's the most I'll give you," or "I never did anything wrong, but if you think so, oh, I'm sorry. So you're happy now?" That's not satisfying. It doesn't help you. It doesn't resolve the issues. And this is especially true when you're trying to negotiate between people who are very close to you. We're really bad at this because this is when we throw out all the things about, "Oh, you always do this," or "You never do that," or "You're only thinking of yourself." It's a terrible way of negotiating, because to negotiate, you want to get the best possible deal out of the negotiation, but it has to be something that the other person accepts. And if you keep yelling at them, if you keep dissing them, they're not going to accept it. So we're really bad at that. But we do try. And a lot of our grievances and our complaints are resolved at the negotiation level and our disputes. I suppose at this time you could even hire a lawyer at this point if it was a real serious negotiation and then you didn't feel comfortable doing it yourself. But most people don't. They try to do it themselves. Now, where do we go from here? Well, for a vast majority of human beings who can't, when they negotiate and they don't get anywhere and they don't get what they think they should get, they jump immediately to court. They decide, okay, we're going to file papers, we're going to sue the bastards. There are other steps along the way that could have been taken that are less expensive, less onerous, less stressful, and more likely to result in a positive conclusion. One of those is mediation. And mediation is really just a natural process to try after you've tried negotiating yourself. Essentially, mediation is assisted negotiation. You have someone who's been trained as a mediator, trained to work with people who are at loggerheads, who don't seem to be able to reach any resolution. You sit down with this third person, you talk it out, and the mediator's job is to assist you in reaching a satisfactory conclusion. And I say satisfactory to the extent that you can live with it, not satisfactory to the extent that you get everything you want. You only get everything you want when you're in a fairy tale and the genie appears, you rub the lamp and everything's there. But that, in the real world, you don't get everything you want, but you can get a lot of what you want, as long as you can distinguish between what you need and what you want. Wants and needs are different things. And I suggest that you take a look at the blog post on the Las Vegas Mediation website called Needs and Wants, so you can understand the difference between those two. So you have a mediation, and you would sit with the mediator and work these things through. And mediation has a very high success rate. For example, my area is divorce mediation. I work primarily with family issues. And I would say that 80% of the cases are resolved by mediation if you have people who are willing to sit down and actually want a resolution. And some people don't want a resolution. They don't want it on their own shoulders. They don't want to have to make the decision themselves for fear that at some point in time it's going to be wrong. Something's going to turn out wrong, and it'll be their fault because they made this decision. So they're really much more willing to go all the way up to court to let somebody in a black robe sitting on a high bench with a hammer in their hand make the decision, because then they can always say, oh, well, no, it was that judge that made the decision. It wasn't really me. But if you're an adult who has managed your own life so far, let's say that you've grown up, you've married, you've decided to have children, you've raised the children, you've run your finances, you run your business, or you work in your job appropriately, you have all the skills necessary to resolve in mediation, if you are willing to at least listen and try. and try it. It's not the easiest thing in the world, but it is really good because mediation allows you to actually set the parameters of the final agreement, not somebody else who doesn't know you. Now, you also may, in certain circumstances, be able to access the process called arbitration. And we have arbitrators on the staff of Las Vegas Mediation too. In arbitration, rather than have you make all the decisions about what the final results are, you present your case to the arbitrator. You discuss these things. The arbitrator will ask questions. The arbitrator can take a look at the evidence. And then at the end, the arbitrator will make a decision. Now, it depends. If in the beginning you signed an agreement that said whatever the arbitrator says goes, and we're going to abide by that, well, then that decision is binding. Otherwise, it's just it's kind of persuasive. It should give you an idea about what might happen if you go further. And it's very helpful. And of course, if you do go further, everybody thinks they know what happens in court. I would submit that most of what happens in court is not what you see on TV or in the movies. It's a painfully slow process in many ways. It's demonizing because that's the nature of this. You're trying to prove to a third person, in this case a judge, that you are telling more of the truth than somebody else. And in order to do that, you have to demonize the other person. Now, if you are never going to see this person again, I suppose it isn't a big deal. But in most instances, in businesses where you run in the same circles, or especially in families where people are getting divorced, you're always going to be the parent of the child. But by the end of a court case, the two of you the relationship is pretty much murdered by the whole experience, and it is not very helpful. So if you at all can do it, you want to try a process that's lower down on the scale. Don't stuff, but don't jump to court right away. So I just want to say that here at Las Vegas Mediation, we are here to offer you mediation services at a reasonable price and to help you through the process. It is not difficult if you are willing to try to negotiate. What's important is you are understanding that you want to move on. And keep in mind, too, you have to set a price on what's the value of getting divorced. Once you know that, you're pretty much able to negotiate fairly well. So, I hope that if you would need mediation services, you will consider Las Vegas Mediation, and you will see our phone number and website on the credits. Thank you.